What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lineman Life podcast. I am your observant lineman, Uche Nwaneri. I've been over here kind of hustling around trying to get this new setup together with my there we go. With my new little online setup there. But it looks like we have gotten things together. How's everybody doing out there? Remember to leave a super chat, get a question answered. We're going to talk about a number of things. Obviously, the elephant in the room we all know is the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was played this past Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. We all know. The Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champs, getting the win over the San Francisco 49ers at a score of 31-20. Now, obviously, with the situation with the 49ers, and give me 1 second here, folks. Let me grab my headset. There we go. All right. All right. Now, as I was saying, there we go. Got the headset on. Ready to do this. But as I was saying, you had the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers. And I thought it was honestly a good game. Thought it was very well played for the most part. When you were talking about what was going on the field, you know, there was a bit of a struggle going on between both teams in the first half. And I'm going to pull up some plays here to go over with you guys. And I hope this works, but let me pull it up here and see. Because I actually have the NFL Game Pass. And we're going to go through a couple of plays. Maybe a number of plays on each side. But, you know, let's see here. Let me go through the coach's film of the game. Hopefully it allows me to actually put it up. And there we go. All right, so we're going to look through some of these plays here during the Super Bowl. Now, this is the kickoff, obviously. And let me pull this up so I can see what you guys got going on in the chat. All right. So, opening kickoff. We got the opening kickoff here. What's going on, guys? Just saying what's up to the chat. Got the opening kickoff here, and as you can see, let me bring this over some so the guys can see the whole thing. Put that right there. This game started off pretty fierce. You know, there's no doubt about it. Both teams came out on the defensive end, and while they gave up yards, they were able to stifle the offenses for the most part. You know, the Kansas City Chiefs, I felt like their defense did a really good job of stepping up early in the game because, you know, as we all know, Patrick Mahomes wasn't necessarily playing up to his potential, what we all usually expect from him. And that created a bit of a problem for the Chiefs. I mean, he threw a couple of interceptions, had a couple of bad throws, like a couple of really bad throws. And, it really ended up putting some pressure on them. Now, let's take a look at the O-line here. And let me pull this up here on my screen. Let's take a look at the O-line. Let me back it up here on this first drive. Actually, I want to take a look at some of San Fran's plays first. All right, so this is San Fran, 1st and 10. Their first drive of the game. And, I think that both offensive lines, obviously, I felt like both offensive lines were imperfect in how they played. I think that these teams' defensive lines came well prepared for the most part. They were able to cause some issues for the 49ers run game. I thought that was specifically something that I wasn't necessarily expected based on what the Chiefs had done throughout the course of the season. But they came and they played well against this front line of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, one thing that I thought that the 49ers really started to lean on when it wasn't necessarily time to do that was they leaned on a lot of these play-action bootlegs. Look at the O-line here. O-line comes off the ball strong, and the offensive line has to come off the ball strong for a bootleg to work. For a bootleg to work well, look at how these guys are running off the line of scrimmage, and watch the defense, how they react to it. You got D linemen reacting, waiting for the run, and that gives them that space to make those kind of plays down the field with their bootleg play action game. So definitely was some good stuff that San Francisco did early in the game. They used a lot of their reverse plays with Debo, and that guy's a game changer. Watching him in the game, I don't understand why they didn't stick to a lot of these runs that they had going for them. I felt like they honestly went away from the run that they were having success with. Once they got their 10-point lead, I felt like they tried to do too much to get Jimmy Garoppolo that MVP. I felt like they really just went away from what made them the kind of feared offense that they'd become throughout the playoffs. And at the end of the day, when you're not going to your strengths, when you have the 49ers had 129 yards rushing. At the end of the day, that's average for them. And this is the Super Bowl. So we're going to need you to do a little bit more than just be average. And once they got that 10-point lead, you could tell that they just weren't pressing the run game like they would normally do against any defenders that they played against. And that really was something that I felt hurt them in trying to close out the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a 2nd and 3 play here. I mean, look, this is a run formation, run all the way, 2nd and 3. I think they got 1, maybe 2, got 1 yard there. But, you take a look at the offensive line. I thought that's where the game was won. These offensive lines were tested early, and they were tested often. I felt like the Chiefs as well didn't have a particularly great game on the offensive line, but their line was able to recover and begin to hold off San Francisco much better than the 49ers offensive line was able to do for Garoppolo late in the game. This was that Philly special play that they were going for. This actually is a play that would have likely worked had Garoppolo been able to get out flat on his release. His left tackle gets pushed back into him here, and that slows down the play. So Debo Sanders just decides to take off with it, which wasn't a bad call anyways. But let's I'm going to move up into the second half here because I just wanted to kind of go over some of this stuff. I watched the game in real time. Luckily for me, I was in Miami for the Super Bowl. I got brought out there for a player networking event with the NFL Alumni Association. So big shout out to them. And I got to hang out with Ricky Williams and watch the game at his event. Hung out with him. Me and him chopped it up a little bit about the game. We noticed some of the same things that people probably didn't notice. Let's see here. Let's go into what quarter are we in. This is still the first quarter. Let's go to the second quarter. Let's check out. All right, so we've got a 3-10 game here. San Francisco's got the ball. They've got the lead. They're in control. These guys made plays. I mean, they had plays that they could have made throughout the course of the game. And like I said, this is in a position here to take over the game. Like, just keep doing what they do. Run the ball. This is what they do. And, short passes here and there. But you start to see them kind of lose. This is the play where they scored to tie the game, and then you're going to see them go up. This is Kansas City's actually ahead here, 10-3. But San Francisco is on the rebound and are pushing to take the lead. And there you go with Uche, their fullback, scoring on this play. Great play action once again. I mean, that's something they do well, and that's something that when you run the ball, you're able to do that, and that's just part of the game that San Francisco runs. So we're going to fast forward here. For the sake of time, I want to get to kind of where things started to go south for the 49ers. Now, let's see. Okay, so we're going into the third quarter here. I believe this is the third, end of second. All right, so third quarter, tied 10-10. And let's go to, gotta go to the fourth. Let's go to the fourth quarter. Okay. All right, so 20-10, San Francisco has the lead. And this is where you think, okay, San Francisco is about to take control of this game. Ball's intercepted. San Fran has the ball. This is where I think things go downhill for the 49ers. When they decide that they're going to get together off this interception in the third or in the fourth quarter, and you're going to act like you guys have won the game, and now you've put Kansas City in a position where they have to make a decision on how they're going to, what's their next move, or how are they going to respond to this to try and keep themselves in the game. And of course, you expect San Francisco to start off running the ball, and you would think that at this point, you've run the ball to close the game, to shorten the game, but that's not what they decided they wanted to do. It's not what they decided they wanted to do. So they're working inside their own side of the field. And what eventually would happen here is that they would gain that 12 yards on this play, on this pass to Sorensen. To Kittle, tackled by Sorensen. But from there, you get 1 yard. And then after that, you get an incomplete. And then after that, you get a penalty. Then after that, you get 3 yards. And then you're at 4th and 11. You're punting the ball with 9 minutes and 40 seconds left to go. Kansas City gets the ball. And from this point on, Kansas City takes over the entire game. And, you know, unfortunate for the 49ers, they weren't able to get anything together. They weren't able to put together anything. They weren't able to regain any momentum. But with the Chiefs, these guys kept their composure. They got stops. You know, San Francisco gets the ball at their 25-yard line, or at their 20-yard line, 19-yard line, and they get 4 plays, and they get a 3 and out. They get 3 and out. They decided that they're not going to be able to, they're not going to stick to their run game. They still, at this point, I believe they still have the lead. Yeah, I believe they still have the lead here. Still have the lead. The ball should never be put in the air under any circumstances. And, that's just not what they did. They throw incomplete passes. They get balls batted down. They get sacked. And at the end of the day, these guys are, taken out of the game. And, yeah, Peter, yeah, you're right. You're totally right. That deep ball changed the game. That deep ball to Hill changed the game. I think that was probably his, that was their biggest play of the game. But I think that was his biggest catch of the game. And again, San Francisco is, caught in a situation where they now have given these guys the ball back with a chance to win the game. And I mean, how many times have we seen this? How many times have we seen this with, let me see, I think this was the play right here. How many times have we seen this with the Kansas City Chiefs? Them being able to come back, make a play on a deep ball. And now when you thought you had them beat, here's one big play, and they're going to come back with another one. When you think you have them beat, they pull it right back out. And then from there, it's ugly. It's ugly. So they have their chances. San Francisco definitely had their chances, and they weren't able to pull it off. And I really believe that when you don't play the game the way the game is supposed to be played, you're up 10 points in the fourth quarter. You don't pass the ball anymore. It's a 4-minute offense for the rest of the game. You're running the ball. You have the best running team on the field, one of the best running teams in the NFL. And you decide that you're going to pass the ball, you're going to go 50-50 run pass when you have a 10-point lead and nothing to gain from throwing the ball. Nothing to gain whatsoever. So, it plays out that way, but in all honesty, the 49ers, they were the lesser team because of their scheme, because they decided they weren't going to stick to what they're good at. And Kansas City never changed really at all. Kansas City played this game exactly how they play every game. High octane, slinging the ball around. The running game was a bonus for them in this because that's not really their forte. But when they've got so many weapons to get the ball to, that it really gives them an advantage when they're playing regardless of how many scores they're down, because they can put up, as you can see here, they put up 21 points in the fourth quarter, no points in the third, 7 in the first, 3 in the second, none in the third, 21 in the fourth. When it mattered, they put up points and their defense gave up nothing. So again, just another example of one team sticking to what they do well and the other team getting out of character, and it cost them. So for me, that's what everything boiled down to as it pertains to the 49ers not being able to keep up, not being able to hold on to win the game. So that is that. But let's take a look at the chats here. Let's take a look at the chats. And I'm pretty sure what's going on with the chat box here. Oops. see. Okay. All right, let's see here. We got, Dontre, what's going on, man? Dontre, what's up? You got a question. What's going on? Let's see here. RC from NYC, what's going on, man? Everything's going good. Now, I know that a lot of people are probably turning and shifting their attention now from football, since we are now at the end of the football season, or at least at the end of the NFL season. But there is another league that is starting up here this weekend on Saturday, I believe at 2 p.m. We are going to see the inaugural kickoff for the XFL. Let's pull them up here real quick. And you know, the XFL is in a unique situation. The XFL is in a situation right now where they are trying to be that spring league, that feeder system that the AAF was unable to be. And as far as we all know, if you were around, or if you are old enough to remember the XFL, which I believe its first inaugural season was in 2001. Or 2000, but the XFL is getting ready to hit its relaunch. It's a relaunch right now, and let's see. Get on there. Let's get their website here. All right, there we go. All right, so right now we are getting ready for the XFL, and this is going to be interesting, mainly because, like I said before, if you were old enough to remember back in the year 2000 when the XFL started, it actually garnered a ton of hype. A league that really set itself, or was looking to set itself apart from the NFL and be a competitor almost to the NFL from day one. This was something that Vince McMahon promoted the hell out of. This is something that Vince McMahon was able to build up a whole ton of buzz for. And once we got to the games, things got quite interesting. First and foremost, they did not offer a typical coin toss to decide who gets the ball. So if you go on YouTube and you look up some of these different some of the videos that show you how the rules were in the XFL back when it was in its original iteration, you would see that two players would run for the ball from the 50-yard line, would chase a bouncing ball, or would chase a ball that was placed, I don't know, maybe 10 yards away from them. And and whoever came up with the ball, it was a no holds barred. Whoever came up with the ball that team would win the first possession. Now, needless to say, back then they didn't necessarily think that thing all the way through, because what happened was that players began to get injured with routine regularity. Players would get hurt chasing down a ball, for the simple fact is because you've got two guys who are going to do anything they can to get in front of that ball, and these guys are basically playing the Oklahoma drill trying to decide who gets the first possession. Now, it would have been one thing if it was just that, but the XFL actually went bust after one season because it just wasn't good football. It just wasn't the kind of football that people wanted to see. And at the end of the day, if you don't put a product on the field that's viable first and foremost, it's hard to expect that people are going to stick around for that for any seconds. And here we are sitting here 2 days to kickoff, and it's actually provided without being over the top. There are a number of aspects of this game that I'm actually excited to see moving forward. One of those is how they have changed the actual kickoff. Now, with the new rules that they've instated, they've actually changed the kickoff substantially. And the way it works is like this. The ball is kicked off, and when the ball is kicked off, only the kicker and the returner are allowed to actually move. You place the kickoff coverage team at the opposing team's 35-yard line, and the kickoff return team is at their own 30. So you have you have a coverage and a return team that are 5 yards apart, and they're not allowed to move until the ball is caught by the return specialist. And if the ball's not caught, then it takes 3 seconds of the ball having hit the ground if he bobbles it before anyone can move for the ball carrier. And I think that is actually a pretty intuitive way of changing the game so that you don't have the kind of high-speed collisions that you have in the NFL with the kickoff. And, granted, it's not the same as it was in the past because they've moved the kickoff up to the 35-yard line, and now you're seeing mainly these are no plays. These are just 40, 50-yard sprints by coverage teams. So really, the kickoff has become kind of an obsolete play in regards to its usefulness in the NFL. Now, that's not to say that short kicks don't get returned, because they do, and then sometimes you actually do see balls get returned for kickoff for touchdowns. But overall, we're looking at a situation here where you're guaranteeing that the ball is going to get returned because the kickoff is actually happening back at the opposite 30-yard line. So they moved it back to the original spot that it was before the NFL moved it up. And so you're now you're going to actually get a kick return, but it's going to play out almost just like a running play, because there's going to actually have to be blocking schemes that are set up because you're 5 yards away. That's about the same distance as an offensive lineman is from linebackers, 4 to 5 yards. So you're going to actually have to set up schemes to try and create holes for the running back on the kickoff, which is interesting. Secondly, I think that the overtime rules are absolutely genius. I think that this is something that the NFL will likely copycat within the next year or two. And it is essentially a shootout overtime. You have a shootout overtime where each team gets 5 attempts to score from the 2-yard line, or score from an extra point positioning. And I believe that's 2-yard line or the 5-yard line. I'm not exactly sure how they set that up. But you're going to get an opportunity to score 5 times on each side, which means each team will get the equal amount of opportunities to score. And just like a penalty shootout in hockey, just like a penalty shootout in soccer, the team that gets the most points after those five attempts wins. So if you're able to make a few stops on defense, then you can mathematically get to a point where you don't even have to get all 5 of the points or all 5 of the attempts. You actually are able to win the game, before that, which, again, I really think that right there could be a huge selling point for the XFL. The simple fact that they're allowing both teams to possess the ball, something that even with its adjusted rules, the NFL still doesn't allow. If a team scores a touchdown, the game is over. Which I guess in a way it does boil down to you getting a chance to possess the ball through your defense. But there's still the argument of, hey, if the Chiefs are able to get the ball on offense, do they beat the New England Patriots a few years ago, instead of never being able to get on the field with their offense and just watching Tom Brady go down the field and then score a 2-yard, 3-yard touchdown to win the game. I think that, it solves that problem immediately. And it really does give the game more of an excitement level to it. And also another rule that they have actually changed is they're now allowed, there is no extra point kick. There's no extra point after a touchdown. You get an option, you get one of three options. You can either go for 1 point from the 2-yard line, you can go for 2 points from the 5-yard line, or you can actually go for 3 points from the 10-yard line. So you get to actually run a play in order to build or in order to get yourself back in the game. And instead of only being able to add on 2 points at the most, you can now add on 3. I think that that is another intuitive way of evolving the game and making it more exciting for the fans and giving the people something to work with in terms of each team never really being out of the game. You can pull yourself back into the game with more options this way, and I think that's really something that does add to the value of the sport as a whole, rather than just some type of gimmick that the XFL is trying to make. I think these are good changes that we'll actually begin to see with the NFL once they're able to put their pride behind them and start taking notes here. Now, one thing I do not like in terms of their rule changes is they're moving the game clock from 40 seconds to 25 seconds. Now, I understand the intention behind this. They're trying to make it a faster paced game. They're trying to make it more exciting. They're trying to shorten these games down maybe by 20 to 30 minutes compared to what you'd see in the NFL. But I actually think that this is a mistake. And I think that this is actually a big mistake. A bigger mistake with this one decision to me than all of the other rule changes they made in what those changes bring to the game. I think this actually takes away from the game immensely. And the reason being is that a 25-second play clock is a 2-minute drill. It's 2-minute drill type tempo. No. Your offensive linemen, hell, your receivers, nobody's going to be able to operate like that throughout the course of a game. Your players are going to be dead tired by the end of the game, and it's going to look like garbage. Your quality of play is going to drop substantially. Your quality of play calling is going to drop substantially because when you don't have the ability to have that 40-second clock, which allows you to substitute players, which allows your linemen to kind of have that moment in between plays to kind of regroup, catch your breath momentarily, and get ready to focus on the next play, I think that actually hurts the game. I think that you really have to keep it at 40 seconds because you got to think of it like this. When you're in a 2-minute drill, let's say at the end of the half, if an offense is running a 2-minute drill and you run a play and it's a 15-yard gain, well, by the time you get down the field for that 15-yard gain as a lineman and listen for the next play call, you're already sitting at around 15 seconds. And generally around 15 seconds is around the time you want to get that ball snapped in a 2-minute drill. So you want to take about 20 seconds just to get the ball off. And a lot of teams take longer than that. A team that's moving fast and efficient with the 2-minute drill from the 40-second mark, from the end of a play and the start of a new play clock, they're able to get that play clock or get that next play run at the 16 or 17 second mark on the play clock. That is an efficient offense running a 2-minute drill. And as we all know, a lot of teams don't operate that efficiently in the 2-minute drill. They're more towards the 10 to 5 second mark when they get that ball off. So that's a lot to ask of an NFL squad, much less asking that of what we can only really consider B League squads in the XFL. They're not going to be able to operate that way throughout the entire game. I wouldn't think. Not for an extended. That means you're adding plays onto the game. And if you're playing a 12-minute quarter and you're running these plays, by the time you get to the end of the game, you're probably nearing 80, 90 plays. That's a ton of plays for a game. That is 15, 20. That's about 15 to 20 more plays than an NFL team runs throughout the course of a game, which, hey, 60 plays a game, that's a lot of plays in and of itself. 80 plays a game at a high pace, that means that there's not going to be a running game. Running game is going to be non-existent, I would think. It's going to be non-existent. But overall, I do have a lot of interest, and I'm going to be covering these games as well. I'm going to be covering the first game. I'm going to try and live stream it. So if you're in the chat, make sure you keep note of that first game. I'm going to try and live stream it, kind of try and follow along with the game itself, and just give you my thoughts based on what I see out there on the field. There are a number of players that are coming from the NFL. There are a few players that are coming from the NFL. One of them actually was hurt a couple of days ago. Antonio Callaway, that was a receiver that was with the Cleveland Browns. He actually is with, if I'm not mistaken, what team is he with? Looking at my notes here. Don't have his team. I forgot to write down their teams here. But Antonio Callaway, Sammy Coates, just to name a few. Some players who are going to be out there in the XFL. Now, like I said, I'm interested in this league. I'm interested to see what it is that they do. I'm interested to see how well, the games are going to be run. And, of course, I'm also interested to see how long this league can last as a springtime football league. But it's a professional league. It is a professional league. I'm not going to, put them in a semi-pro bots or anything like that. These are going to be professional athletes out there. And I don't expect it to be nearly as polished as the NFL. But at the same time, I expect to see more in way of skill than I would see on a collegiate level, on any kind of semi-pro level. But we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But really, there's a lot that can be gained by having another league that actually is viable and can sustain itself in the football world. There's a lot to be gained from that. I think that at the end of the day, when we look at the XFL, if it can be that minor league football league, that can be a market all in of itself that they can thrive in. I mean, obviously, they're not going to be able to compete with the NFL in any way, shape, or form for many years to come if they last that long. But there is definitely going to be an opportunity for the XFL to kind of create its own niche market. And I'm sure with, how some people have become a little bit disenfranchised with the NFL, especially those fans of teams that no longer are in the cities that they're in, this is going to be something that could be a good alternative for them to become fans of a football team once again. And with that, I think that kind of is a good way to segue into the next topic that I want to go over. And I really believe, because, I actually I played my entire career in Jacksonville, Florida. I really do believe this next story is one that is sure enough the hot topic right now in Jacksonville, and that is the fact that the Jacksonville Jaguars will be playing multiple games in London next season. They will be playing multiple games in London next season. This is something that broke a few days back. I was actually not surprised when I saw the headline, but I definitely do understand the frustration that many Jag fans may have about that situation. I definitely can understand the frustrations of the fan base, but it says here, this is from NBC Sports, the Jaguars president says Shad Khan is committed to Jacksonville. Now, I'm not going to sit here and claim to know the inner workings of the Jaguars at the moment, but I got some things that I think I can add to the conversation in regards to what may be going on in Jacksonville. And really, what we're seeing right now is that, and hold on, we're streaming at the same time on Twitch, just to let you guys know. So I'm kind of checking in there real quick as well, just to see what's going on. But, you know, right now, what's going on in Jacksonville and what was going on when I was there, and I'll go through this article here in a moment. Just want to really real quick kind of go over this and go over the situation on as I knew it while I was in Jacksonville, because there was rumblings about this going on when I was playing back. My last year was a 2013-2014 season, and there was a lot of talk about London being a potential being potentially the home game location for the Jaguars for half of our home games. That was the rumor when I was playing. The rumor when I was playing was that the Jaguars were going to take 4 home games in London and 4 home games in Jacksonville. But I think that actually happened before Shad Khan decided he was going to invest in building up Jacksonville as a city and trying to kind of add to the experience in the stadium to lift up that stadium experience so that it could be something that drew crowds to Jacksonville, not only for just football games, but also for mega events like concerts, just things that appeal to the wider, the broader base of people. And I think that actually is a good idea from the standpoint of building up that area and making it into something that can be useful for more than just football. But at the end of the day, while I was in Jacksonville, it just never really seemed like it was something that players were totally interested in. I don't think that players were very interested in being a part of a team where you play multiple weeks away from your actual home. It's hard enough to play on a 10-game or a 10-day road trip where you end up playing 2 games throughout those 10 days. We did that in my last year in Jacksonville. We played in Oakland. We flew out to San Jose. We stayed in San Jose. We played against the Raiders. Then straight from there, we flew up the West Coast, up to Washington, and played against the Seahawks. And then we came back to Jacksonville, and then we flew to London after that and stayed 10 days in London, and then we got a bye week. And that was pretty rough. I got to say, that was a pretty rough time for the players in regards to not really being in the routine that we're used to. And I think that is a lot that's really the biggest part of where there's going to be a disconnect between the players and the front office if you try to put in a situation where you have more than one, at the very most, 2 games in London in a season, is that now it's weird. It's really weird. The longer you are away from your actual home during the season, the harder it is to, really focus on the task at hand. We are creatures of habit, and we are players of routine, and a lot of things that guys use to get themselves ready to play games each and every week. A lot of those things are at their houses. When I was playing, I had my hyperbaric chamber at the house. After every game, I'm getting in the hyperbaric chamber. That helps me in my recovery to get ready for practice throughout the next week. And when you're spending 10 days on the road, you play a game and you don't have a chance to use that hyperbaric chamber anymore. I can't use that. I have to just, get in the ice tub or do something, get a little bit more sleep to try and recover. Whereas if I was back in Jacksonville, I can jump into that hyperbaric chamber, take a little 2-hour nap, and boom, I'm already halfway back to fully recovered. And over the next couple of days, a day off, I'm able to get my body back to get ready to start practicing for the next game. I think 2 games in London on the other side of the ocean, I think that is a little bit excessive. But I also think that Shad Khan feels that it's necessary at this point. Let's take a look at this article. It says the alarms in Jacksonville are blaring in the wake of the news that the Jaguars will play a pair of home games in London next season. Team president Mark Lamping has tried to throw water on the notion that the team eventually will be crossing the pond for good. Shad Khan has been very clear, Lamping said, regarding the franchise's owner in an appearance on Sirius XM NFL Radio. The most important thing he wants to do is to bring a Super Bowl to Duval County, and obviously we have a lot of work to do on that front. But the other thing he wants to do is ensure that there's NFL football in Northeast Florida for many generations to come. Lamping explained that the mixed-use development around the team stadium, a project he described as Patriot Place on steroids, he added that the effort is changing the feel and energy of downtown Jacksonville, and as downtown Jacksonville goes, so will the Jaguars. He said Khan is committed to keeping the team in Northeast Florida. Still, that doesn't change the fact that the Jaguars will be playing one or more games in London indefinitely. London supplements what we're doing in Jacksonville, Lamping said. Certainly doesn't replace it. So, team president Mark Lamping says there that he actually that Shad Khan's actually committed to keeping the team in Jacksonville, which, I mean, right now I have no reason to doubt that. And I would say I have no reason to doubt that mainly because before they decide they want to make that kind of move, I would think that they would try to get a new stadium out of Jacksonville first. I think if they could get a new stadium, that would be something that would absolutely keep the Jaguars in Jacksonville for the future period. And it would probably scale back the desire to play in London for more than one game, I would think. But even if they agree to do something today, you're not going to see a new fan or a new stadium for 3 more years. If they agree to something today and start to work on it next week, 3 years, then you see a new stadium. So that's something that's going to take some work to get done as far as getting a deal set up. But I also believe that as far as it pertains to the Jaguars, I think right now money and ticket sales are just not where they need it to be. And I think that Shad Khan's getting more money off of playing those London games. One, because Shad Khan owns Wembley Stadium, which is crazy in and of itself, that he owns the stadium. He bought the stadium. He bought a soccer team out in London. I think it's Fulham. He owns Fulham. And he wants to be able to maximize that revenue. Now, does that mean truly that it's a home game from the Jaguars? I don't think so, because when we played, we were the home team, and we played against the 49ers, and it wasn't a home game. It was just an NFL game. There were people wearing every jersey that you could imagine from every team that, and every fans go out there. Fans plan to go out there for the experience. So it's not necessarily a Jags fan base that's going to be out there. It's going to be the NFL as a fan base is going to be out there. But that, to Shad Khan, brings him more money than just playing that game in Jacksonville. And I think that's what he's looking at in regards to trying to garner more revenue so that he can have more money to put up for that new Jacksonville Jaguars stadium. Because I believe at the end of the day, that is the end game for Shad right now, is to get a new stadium in Jacksonville, one that can, kind of reinvigorate the fan base in Jacksonville itself. But also at the end of the day, you gotta have a team out there that's winning games. And if you're going to make this kind of push and you're going to put this kind of effort into reinvigorating the fan base, then we're going to need to see more wins. You're going to need to see consistently, year in and year out, a team that's in the playoffs, a team that's competing to get into the AFC title game, a team that's competing to go to the Super Bowl. I think those are the kinds of things that justify, ultimately, the ability to bring new hardware to the table to build a team off of, or to build around the team, actually. And at the end of the day, I really do believe that, when they got rid of Tom Coughlin, they should have went ahead and cleaned house with Doug Marrone and David Caldwell, because it just feels like you have to purge the team. Once you get rid of the person who's in charge of everything, then you need to get rid of everything that has his name on it. And while Dave Caldwell was there before Tom Coughlin, I still believe that Tom Coughlin was the ultimate power when he was in his vice president position as the head of football operations. He made all the calls for the football team. So when they got rid of him, they should have got rid of everybody. Start fresh. Maybe that's something that they look into if this next season doesn't go well. I would assume that Shad Khan is giving these guys a 1-year show me period to decide whether or not these guys will be here in the long run to moving forward. But right now, as far as it pertains to this London game and them playing 2 home games in London, it's a money deal. It's a business decision that Shad Khan has made for ultimately the betterment of what the Jaguars have in Jacksonville. I don't think necessarily that a team is viable to play strictly in London at this point, mainly because the NFL and scheduling around teams that would have to go to London to play would be a nightmare. That would be a logistics nightmare. And taxes. Taxes are brutal when you put an international tax as well as a domestic tax on teams that play in London. When we played in London, my check was down probably another 20% on top of what it usually was down on taxes. So I think I was giving up. I think from that London game, I gave up around 60% of my taxes of my paycheck to play that game. So the players are actually losing money to play in that game. So I just don't see that as a situation that's going to be viable for players. 1, because of the money, 2, because of their families, and having to move back and forth across an ocean is not an easy thing to do regardless of who you are. And it's just not something that is going to be sustainable for the league right now outside of those one-shot international games that teams get raffled into play. So that is where I think this whole situation starts and ends with the people in Duval County. But that is going to bring us to the end of our Lineman Live podcast. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys for being on the podcast. I know we had been on a little bit of a hiatus over the last week or so, getting ready for the Super Bowl, and then, having the Super Bowl week. I really apologize for that, but now we are getting things rolling back in full motion. Don't forget to check out our live streams as well on Twitch. My Twitch screen handle is The Observant Lineman. And also, of course, if you are interested in donating, my Patreon account is wide open for you to jump in and become a Patreon. I'm going to start setting up my Patreon levels so that you guys can choose what level you want to come in at. I think right now it's pretty much open for anything, but go on patreon.com/The Observant Lineman. You can find me there. But until next time, I will be catching you guys on the next Lineman Life podcast on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you are there, and I will catch you all on the next podcast. Peace.